leadership position.
Okay. Bring this meeting to order. Show all commissioners present. Please join me for the pledge and prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us here together today safely and hearing. Show us thoughtfulness, respect, and courteousness to others as we travel throughout this great county today and carry on business for the citizens of Fremont County. Protect our soldiers, sailors, armed forces across this great world, and keep us forever faithful. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Agenda.
I thought that Doug Thompson had to reschedule, will be next. I've already.
Oh, you're right. I was gonna say.
scheduled.
Okay. Find it. All right. Anything further? Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Maybe a brief executive session. Brief executive.
Okay.
It would be in order.
All right, we will, if we get a few minutes, I'll get one. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second. We moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Minutes.
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of minutes.
Been moved and seconded to accept the minutes as presented. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We have a stack of bills to be paid.
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of bills.
Second. Been moved and seconded to approve payment for those bills. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We do have Title 25.
Yes, we do. Mr. Chairman, we have a claimant for Title 25, ethical transportation assistance, the amount of $1,445.80. Motion to approve payment, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve payment of that bill in the Title 25 as mentioned in the motion. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Signature file.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did, Evan, did you have the second report release later? Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hold this back just because I haven't had a chance to read it.
Okay.
And I don't know if anybody else had a chance to read this.
Well, I think we had questions about, did you get a hold of the current leasing?
A letter was sent.
Okay. No, nothing back from him. Okay.
So,
This is on the phone.
yeah, so if we could maybe get this copied out, maybe after break, we have a chance to read it and then to discuss it again, if that'd be okay with everybody. Okay. Mr. Chairman, we have a resolution number 2026-11, whereas Men's Health Month is part of an ongoing international effort to educate men's, boys, and their families about the importance of preventative health screenings, early detection. Mr. Chairman, I move to have your signature apply to that.
Second. We moved and seconded to approve resolution 2026-11. Men's health screening. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, I could tell you scary stories about that,
Please.
but I'm not going to. Okay.
Can you bring pictures?
Video. So, Mr. Chairman, we have a Fremont County Employee Healthcare Contract, wellness lab services with, Lander Forensic, right? I think I read that. I'm sorry, Lander Medical Clinic. So, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve this agreement for the health fair contract.
Been moved and seconded to approve the contract for the Fremont County Employee Health Care Contract. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a board cut parallel public utilities right-of-way easement application for Maryland Curtis Patent Regulatory and Safety, Red Butte Pipeline LLC, address 909 Lake Carolyn Parkway. So check that's there. Anyway, move to approve that right-of-way application.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the right-of-way application. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, then we have the Commissioner's Record of Proceedings.
Priority mail.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First, we have the city of Lander, notice of public hearing for Riverwood subdivision replat on April 16th. And then we have the BLM 2026 field monitoring land health evaluations. And notice of proposed decision on the Corny Ranch. And then also the for the Associated General Contractors of Wyoming monthly review reports from the attorney's office and the planning department.
Okay. Public comment. There is none. And we're way ahead of the sheriff. Nobody else is here either.
Really?
Tim, you said you wanted a few minutes, or did you want to talk about that at your 10:45?
No, that works.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, we're moving the 10:45 to now.
no. Oh,
We can.
well, let's do that then. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the county commission. I wanted to take just a few minutes as FCAG has been working very diligently at answering some questions that they don't necessarily have all the answers to. And a lot of those presently surround the ambulance service. And so from that, kind of in collaboration with the county, what we're hoping to accomplish is the formation of the Regional Ambulance Service Evaluation Committee. It's something to kind of evaluate where our current ambulance services are, where they might be improved, seek community feedback, really in partnership with the county on doing that. Commissioner Mike Jones, very, I'll say willingly, volunteered to be the liaison to that group so that it stays very closely tied to the county commission priorities.
Mr. Chairman, just as a reference, I mentioned this last week. I think we had that documented in our packet. So hopefully everybody remembers a little bit of that, and that's what we're talking about. Is this group is formed and it came through FCAG. Anyway, so just wanted to remind him that we did talk about it last week.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I just wanted to take a few minutes to introduce. They did meet very briefly, a few members of them last week, kind of setting the schedule, and electing some officers, and Police Chief of Shoshone, Chris Kojai, has been elected chairman. So I wanted to make
How many times?
want to make that introduction and give him an opportunity to kind of introduce himself, as I'm sure you all are aware of him, but also kind of discuss what the initial conversation was.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Chris Kojai. we're trying to provide some, yes, guidance framework to possibly help solve this conundrum of the ambulance service in Fremont County and some other options for the commission to consider as we go forward with various models. One of the things that we discussed was trying to figure out the needs of the community, Fremont County in general, as well as all the rural communities in Fremont County versus the reality of providing service. And one of the goals was trying to figure out a way that is as least.
You'll have to speak up.
Yeah, sorry.
Bring that, go ahead and bring it over.
There we go. Trying to find a model that is as least dependent on public subsidy as possible or self-sufficient as you could, or possibly, like a better word, profitable, where it can continue to be self-sustaining and provide better services to the community. And then generate just a general model of what things could look like, as is an example, what we're trying to provide examples of, provide to the committee if you would like.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, were you asking me?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I can provide a copy to the committee.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Taking notes on.
Oh, lots of Jim.
Oh.
Oops, I got an extra.
Just for reference, this is no way a completed model. It's just kind of a general outline using the best available information we have, with some assumptions built in there for additional services and better service for the Fremont County. In this light, we are evaluating multiple different models that will be presented with Commissioner Jones as well. And we just hope to be able to provide some options for the county to consider with or without subsidy or taxpayer funding.
So is this cover page the current assets that we have, or what your proposal is?
This is not a proposal. This is just a rough outline, just
Okay.
for a general
Okay,
viewing, just of what we're hoping to try, and it'll be a lot more comprehensive than just this 5 pages. And
yeah,
this is just more of a summary. Yeah, it's just kind of an example of what something could look like that could be self-sustaining. That's what we're trying to be able to at least take all the knowledge, all the information that we can gather, provide the commission, and as well as the citizens with information, how we can make the service possibly better, how it can be funded without having to necessarily rely on public funds.
Mr. Chairman.
yes,
Chris, I'm not sure what I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
What is this depicting? So is this some ideas on the way it could, because I'm looking at this and I'm not really sure what this is telling me.
So right,
Summarize a little bit.
Yeah,
What this is.
so right, this is a IFT focus. So sorry, I should put some definitions.
This IFT.
So it's interfacility transfers. So as we know, the purely 911 model of ambulance service, especially in rural Wyoming, is it loses money, requires subsidy of some sort. I think that's well known. This is one way, like I said, this is purely an example of other ways to do it by integrating a model that focuses on interfacility transfers that do provide additional revenue. That subsidizes internally within the ambulance service, the other assets that are not making money, which 911 service calls. And so there's models around the state that this is kind of pulled from, as just a general example. That help clarify that.
so, we do have, a grant from the Department of Health. And they help pay for the interfacility transfers. Part of the grant that we got, we had to purchase a new ambulance just for interfacility transfers. And we had, prior to us getting the grant, we had talked to Sage West and had several meetings with Sage West about increasing the number of ground transports. Um, and reduce the number of air transports.
Correct.
And they said they felt comfortable that they could reduce the air flights by at least 350 per year. Well, once we got the grant, then the Sage West upper echelon, whatever, started recruiting a whole bunch of new doctors and ultimately the ground transfers reduced. I think we were down to like 16, not even 16 in the first 3 months instead of 40, 50, whatever. And it continues to be that way. Their physicians just will not call for a ground transfer to take the patient somewhere else.
Correct. I mean, there is a lot of, like I said, this is just an example. This is not
Right.
any kind of
Oh,
business model. This is just, I just want to be able to provide something.
Okay.
Just ways of looking at trying to provide something in the future. Hopefully, out of this committee that we're able to provide some options.
okay.
Some of that, a lot of it comes to communication and right now, Sage West, or sorry, Frontier, they're not operating 24/7 transports. A lot of the transports are Lander, Riverton, Rivers, and Lander. There's many patients that need to go to Casper, and talking with the doctors at Sage West, they don't want to have to fly all the patients because, for one, it's not necessarily faster. Flight can't always fly. So you have patients that are boarded here for 2 days that need to go to Casper but can't get to Casper. And so there is a gap there. I don't think we can answer all the questions right now today. That's hopefully we'll be able to figure out as we go through this process to present to the final out.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the county commission. I just wanted to also kind of reiterate that the idea behind this group too is to make sure that a lot of key stakeholders are involved in identifying some potential improvements or what, as Committee Chairman Kojai had mentioned, the public need or the public, what are the expectations of the public and kind of identifying that. Currently, those members do include, I was able to get a hold of Kim Lee. He will be on the committee as well with Chris and I'm gapping on our committee members' names. I apologize. Mick Pryor, Lisa Moulton, yep, Malin, and Jared Whitebull with the Northern Arapaho Tribe. And so we are still looking for Eastern Shoshone, proposed individual from there. But the schedule for those meetings will be every Wednesday currently, but that is not set in stone. Those can move. And we'll be sure to communicate that if that is. I highly encourage anybody who wants to tune in. I know Chairman Allen tuned into a couple of the prior committee meetings to just offer insight, but our goal is to ensure that it stays closely connected with the county commission before any recommendations are made.
I just need to be sure to get to them.
Okay.
Yeah, the last couple of meetings I didn't get the invite. So,
Okay, we'll make that happen.
okay.
So
Yes.
I'm sorry, noon at the WRTA building?
Yes, it is Wednesdays noon to 1 at the WRTA facility. There's also a Zoom link available if you're not able to be there in person.
I haven't seen it. I know I saw a reference that you sent it to me, but
Okay. I can send as many reminders as I need, so just let me know and I'll send it along.
Chairman, so Tim, get a hold of Clint Wagon, he's for the Eastern Shoshone side.
Okay, will do.
He's well versed in a lot of areas, both in tribal and state and county. And he understands a lot about what you might need.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We'll go over this with the committee and kind of get into it. have discussions, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're just looking at, like I said, this was just kind of an outline of just kind of a way that could be theoretically,
Mhm.
but there's not necessarily the way we're presenting
Well,
or
right.
anything like that. There's lots of
Rough
other,
draft.
exactly. I mean, I'd say extremely rough draft.
Right.
I just wanted to give you some kind of visual, just to have something to you. We're hoping that we can evaluate all the different revenue streams that maybe haven't been considered in the past 2%. Possibly make things better and more self-sustaining in the future. I know that every 5 years with the EMTs and stuff like that, job security and not knowing what to do, we don't want to lose the talent we do have in Fremont County. And so I think it's vital that Fremont County has a sustainable ambulance service going forward. And hopefully we can provide some information that can help provide this.
Mr. Chairman, so my plan is I will bring back, if you can't make it or whatever, I'll try to bring back a summary of what the conversation, so we keep ourselves informed.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yep.
Thank you very much. The mushroom factory gone.
It's still there. We're hoping that they'll revive it. I don't know.
I mean, they're not operating now.
Not currently, no. I think they were hoping for hemp or something. It's just idled right now, so
So they sold it, didn't they?
it's still owned by the Malagaya
Corporation.
Corporation. Yeah. They have 2 people there. They're not growing anything.
Sure. Waiting, waiting.
No problem. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, good morning.
Good morning.
On here, I guess.
Okay.
I thought you had questions for me. I
All right.
apologize. Within the last 30 days or so, the dispatch committees met and they started preliminary budget talks. I'm aware of the memorandum that you received from Frontier Ambulance concerning additional funds that they want subsidized due to the fact that there's talks of raising their dispatch fees to the standard. If you recall, there was 5 years, the contract 5 years ago that we entered into. We capped Frontier's payment at $235,000. Subsequently, they are the second highest user of the dispatch center currently, and they're looking at assessing Frontier Ambulance $415,000, which is a $180,000 increase. There's nothing that's set concrete. I know over the last several years since we've been in this contract that that underpayment from Frontier has been brought up during the budget cycle. Treasurer Anderson is in attendance here this morning as well, and perhaps you can elaborate further on how those payments broke down. But here for any questions. Again, this is not in concrete. I did not send a letter to Frontier indicating that that's what their fees were going to be. And my director, and I don't believe anybody else on the dispatch committee sent any correspondence that way. I do believe that Director Lane was in attendance at that meeting, and she was in communication probably with her email.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I appreciate that, Sheriff. It was a little bit of a surprise to us, and it was unclear on whether they were thinking the rates are going up, or is this going to be a contractual conversation next year? So that's fine. I guess I had some questions relative to this year and what we budgeted last year and whatever shortfall there is within the 911 budget this year. And I just wanted to make sure we had a conversation because let's face it, we should be paying that out of our general fund because we set that contract. So that's going to raise some questions for next year as if this is a 5-year contract, how do we make those adjustments How do we write that into the contract that those fees, because they're just gonna send them right back to us. And anybody else who uses that, you know, who manages that service, so that's gonna be an issue for us. But my questions were more about this year. How are we accounting this? And how are we moving funds to make sure, you know, we keep it whole? If, because when Jim had come in and he talked about, he kind of presented some numbers. I don't know if he presented them here, but he did to me anyway, and I took a look at them. It looks like we were headed for some sort of shortfall this year, and not all of it was ambulance.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do believe, Commissioner, I believe that shortfall was somewhere around $70,000. And again, I would like if Treasurer Anderson can elaborate on
Yeah,
the budget itself.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because I think there's some anxiety going on, and I don't think they're the only one of our partners, you know, Frontier. I think there are other partners that are like, ooh, you're gonna hit me with a bill this year, and so I just want to make sure we got that out in the open in this meeting. And Jim, do you want to come up? Is that okay, Mr. Chairman? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. No, I was gonna ask.
Okay, sorry. I just, you know. So I guess question is, do we have, other than ambulance, do we have a shortfall this year for the 911 dispatch budget, right?
The short answer is yes. And it's sort of been brewing for a few years. The dispatch fund is an internal service fund or a proprietary fund, which means it's meant to act like a business. So the revenue should cover its expenditures. And just, you know, over the last, I went back and looked at the last 3 years. You know, our revenues have consistently been less than the expenditures have been. Fiscal year 23, we were almost $106,000 under. Fiscal year 24, we were $38,000 under, and for fiscal year 25, we were $527,000 under. So revenues exceeded our revenue, or I'm sorry, expenditures exceeded our revenues by, you know, over $500,000 that year. So the root cause of that is, I'm not exactly sure that I could pinpoint the root cause of that. The revenues that come into the dispatch fund are the user fees. There is some investment interest. Investment interest is tied to the cash. If there's no cash in the fund, there's no investment interest. And then there's E911 fees or surtaxes and the prepaid wireless distributions that we get from the state that happen quarterly. And it looked like from a budgeting standpoint, the E911 fees have been consistently over budgeted. But nonetheless, even from a budgeting standpoint, if you just look at budgets, never mind what actually came in, we were consistently had a higher expenditure budget than we had revenues coming in. And I'm not sure, I mean, I understand a little bit about how the user fees are calculated. And I'm not sure that model is sustainable over the long haul.
How, I mean, the 911 surcharge fees are historically less than what we're being told they projected revenues.
Yes.
And then, so what other expenses would there be? I mean, we've paid for the new consoles, the remodel, the upgrades. I mean, not as far as software, but as far as equipment and so on and so forth. We paid for that through ARPA and LATC funding. So, other than personnel, what would be the shortfalls? And we're historically low. I mean, we're historically low on numbers of employees.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I believe where the issue lies is that obviously we're that $180,000 some dollars a year that's not being paid into the dispatch fund on behalf of the county, which is a shortfall for Frontier. And that is something that every year when we do this budget is brought to the attention of the commission that there is that extra amount due out there due to Frontier being capped at that $235,000. So personally, I believe that's exactly where it's coming
Just from the ambulance.
from the ambulance shortfall. Certainly the ambulance shortfall is gonna affect things. So you're fine. And I'm not saying that that's not a substantial portion of it. The way that we have been calculating fees have been looking back at what did we spend last year? And then taking an average call volume and figuring out, so we need whatever we spent last year is what we're gonna gain in user fees minus the E911 surtax. And so, so what we're doing is we're always looking backwards. We're never addressing the changes that are coming in the current year. And, and I understand the history behind that, and that had to do with staffing and whatnot. So, Mr. Chairman, you are correct. We have moved money in from LATC and from ARPA for various upgrades and projects. The general fund did add money to the dispatch fund for SOC adjustments in 2025 to the tune of about $38,000. When it comes to the ambulance fees, yes, we've not adjusted those fees in the 5 years since that's happened. I mean, we did a couple years ago, and I think it was in fiscal year 23. We took the memo that we got from the dispatch director and said the ambulance is supposed to be, charged this. So we were sending out bills for $22,000 a month, and they were sending us $19,000 in payment on all of them. So, so there was a $3,000+ a month shortfall. And that's when we went back and looked at the contract and said, oh yeah, the contract doesn't allow for any changes in dispatch. So we have not been billing, and
Mr. Chairman, so Jim, are we doing some sort of transfer? Because
no, we're not.
shouldn't we be taking that out of our general fund and saying, okay, we're gonna make the dispatch fund whole from that?
Yeah, we certainly could and should. We don't have budget to do that.
I
So we'll-
understand it would be a budget adjustment, but my concern is, it's kind of been, this issue's been kind of lingering out there.
Right.
How do we bring it to a head and make sure we put it in a proper format?
Right.
So we're getting this, so everybody understands how money is flowing. And then I guess my second thinking, as you guys are talking about this, is we have multiple revenue sources and we budget for those revenue sources at a certain level. Are those all kosher? Or are those all over the place too? And is there, and Sheriff, I heard you say, I believe it is the ambulance fund, but I didn't hear anybody say, no, we know, we've looked at every revenue source and we've looked at every expenditure line and lined them up. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, I'm a civil guy, just like, pros and cons.
Well, so, I mean, I could comment a little bit on that. So on the E911 surtax, for example, I've got fiscal year 25 in front of me. So we budgeted $437,390 in anticipated E911 fees, and it came in at $323,000. So we were, $100,000 less than our budget in the E911 fee
For revenue.
And the E911 fees, I mean, that $320,000 to $340,000 has been pretty consistent over the last several years. And so it seems odd that we're continuing to budget $100,000 more on an annual basis
For revenue.
for revenues there. And I don't know, like I say, I think there's more work to be done into like truly analyzing the whole thing. But, again, even looking back at fiscal year 25, our total revenue budget was just over $1.4 million, and our expenditure budget was almost $1.8 million. So if everything would have come across exactly the way we wanted to, we'd still be $400,000 in the hole. And so I guess that's part of what I'd like to take a step back, especially as we're heading into a new budget year, is really looking at our budgeting and decide, where this needs to come from. I don't disagree that the ambulance dispatch portion of the fees is greater than what than what Frontier is paying. And, you know, how we choose to address that is up to this table here. I think it should be a shortfall, and it's not a far leap for me to understand that if we tell Frontier they gotta pay more, then they're gonna say, well, your subsidy is gonna be more. So, you know, do we just cut the chase and say, well, we'll just put the dispatch fees in there for you, instead of sending us money so you can turn around and send it back to us. So,
So how long would you suggest, or do you think it would be to kind of do an accounting and give us the full picture?
I could probably, I don't know, what does your meeting schedule look like this month?
We have meeting next week.
Just
and
next
that's
week?
it.
Um,
Look at it 1st of May, or first week of May.
first week in May might be best if you want a pretty deep analysis into things. So, and how far back would you like me to go and look?
Well, at least 3 years to kind of see if maybe a pattern.
Yeah.
You know, what we have, and I'm just thinking, once we get this full accounting of this, the communication committee, I believe that's what it's called. I believe they'll at least be reassured that hopefully we're not gonna have dramatic increases and in services, and that'll give us, I mean, it'll be just in time for us with budget work sessions, because we start, I believe, the 5th of May.
Mhm.
And we'll have that discussion, and we'll know where, you know, an additional $480,000 or whatever the amount shortfall is that an ambulance has. We'll know where to work from there. Plus, it'll give us some negotiations, because we're having, Mr. Jones and I are having conversations with Frontier Model. So, anyway.
Yes. So, Mr. Chairman, and I don't know if y'all agree with what Jim is saying, but since he's raised it, it certainly raises it in my mind that there's some additional shortfall that has been with us for several years. So the question for me is, how are we gonna deal with that within the 25-26 budget that we're currently in? And what are we projecting out for 2026? So that our partners and us and Frontier, so we can see this coming and get it budgeted accurately. I also think we need to, in our contract, we probably need to write in some allowances that says, hey, these will be adjusted annually based on call volume, going forward, so we don't tie ourselves into that. And so when I say this year, what's the plan to try to cover that nut? And, you know, if it's our general revenue, you know, budget adjustment, then we do that, but we don't continue to scare all our partners. You know, because they take a conversation out of context or whatever. But if we can get that all cleared up, to me, that's where my concern is.
That's exactly what I was saying, but you just kind of went on further with it.
Mr. Chairman,
And cleared it up.
historically, this budget has always had an overage. And we would apply that overage, additional revenue, to next year's, fiscal year and make the user fees even lower.
Right.
However, we stopped having those overages when we went into contract with Frontier, because they're not paying their full amount.
Mhm.
And it wasn't caught up on the back end, through the county general fund.
So, yeah, so I mean, there's conversations that we need to have about that. I mean, we could possibly reduce the contract amount, dollar amount, because we would therefore pay all the dispatch fees. We could reduce, it's a budget deal for us to do, and we just need the true numbers so we can work with those numbers.
Mr. Chairman, so I think as a part of this reconciliation and trying to look at this, we should probably look at staffing and how that relates. I know that has come up as a part of the conversation. So where does staffing and our understaffing, oversetting fit into this equation? And then how do we better account and communicate that going forward? Fair enough?
Anything further?
Mr. Chairman, how does that work? Is there any way that the frontier can save cost? Is there any cost cutting measures that they can take or we can take? How do we get $400,000? Pretty good chunk of money.
Well, it's just in the number of calls that they make, you know, they have an average of 6,500 calls a year. So, you know, not only, I mean, the way I understand it is once they're dispatched to a scene for a call, that counts as one call, correct? But I mean, there's other conversations that go in between, you know, I mean, got the patient loaded, I mean, route to the hospital or whatever. But the way I understand it, that's the initial call, and when they say I'm responding, that's the one call. It doesn't go every time you key the line. So am I right?
It's calls for service, Mr. Chairman.
Right, okay. So yeah, because I had that conversation with the fire department, you know, because I don't like to talk on the radio, but I tell them when I'm en route to the scene or whatever, and tell them when I'm there what you're supposed to do. But I'm not one of these guys that want to, you know, tell everybody about the dead rabbit hole at the road, you know, at mile marks or so and so where I'm going this fast and blah blah blah. But
So that if they get a person in there, they don't talk about, well, this the status of the individual and the ambulance and all that. That's just a call, and they're keeping it brief as they can, right?
well, they'll answer the call. The initial call for service is the call that they're billed for, not the other conversations.
Coming
If,
in.
yeah, not that come in that go with it.
We almost discussed this on the structure of paid for, like your programming and your structures, all that is already taken care of. That's not correct.
Right.
And so it's just a matter of the cost of the individual using the service.
Well, it's an enterprise fund, so it's designed to pay for itself. So it costs so much to keep that operation going. And the costs incurred to the end users are split up to pay for that cost. And like the sheriff said, before we contracted with Frontier, we didn't have that problem. We would actually reduce the rates because we had a surplus of funds.
Okay.
Chairman.
Yeah.
You know, we just met with the chairman of that civic entity that will talk about the issue of ambulance service evaluation. But then also we're looking at the issue of Frontier. Frontier is always coming up in a sense of issue that we keep having to deal with. You know, with ambulance service, as we know, in most areas of metropolitan, it's about a business, and in that, about making money. It seems like every ambulance service that we bring in here always states that they're not making the money here. And in that, if they're not making the money, then they're not paying what they need to pay, you know, and consistent with this, they're not making their payments for what needs to happen. But in that, I think, if you are going to talk Frontier, I think the main objective is to look and really see where they're at. Again, are they again not making the money they need to, like the other ambulance service that was here before? in that, what needs to happen. Most of the time, it's the issue of going to, calls, that they're not getting paid for. A lot of that, we remember, with, both, IHS and with the issue of payment for ambulance service, whether it be, any type of health insurance, Medicaid costs, or those issues of trying to get it paid is not happening. A lot of our constituents don't have MASA. They don't have any way of paying that ambulance for that service. So in that, it becomes a non-payment. A lot of that's happening. In that, how can we, as an entity, change that? But how can we, as a government or governments, deal with a business that's not making money, and then we subsidize the fact that they're not making money in this rural area? To me, that is a very hard situation to be in, because we've been in that before. And so we switched to ambulance service to try to see if there was an ambulance service that could try to make money here. And it's still not happening. In that now, we're in this situation. And supposedly this business is probably not paying because they're not making the money to make the payment. So how do we correct that? I don't, that's one area where government as a whole, how do we intervene in a business that's about making money and they're not making money here? And in that, how do we correct that to where our constituents can continue to have ambulance service? But as governments, are we responsible? Is our constituents responsible to help this ambulance make money? A lot of people are going to ask that same question because it is a business. And in that, how do we find the right ambulance service that can make business here, in a sense, make the money here, that we don't have to deal with this? And we've dealt with it before, and we continue to deal with it. And it's getting to a point where we want to do all these evaluations. But the point is, that particular business, which is that ambulance, is not making money, and they get to a point where, how do we negotiate with them then?
Well, I mean, historically, we've not made, when the county ran it, we didn't.
Yeah.
We weren't making money. And I don't know, we would write off $250,000 a year in bad debt.
Oh, probably easily. I
was
I
thinking.
wasn't in the treasurer's office at the
Yeah.
time, but it's,
$250,000 to $400,000 annually.
Yeah.
Because of non-payment. And the reimbursement rates have not changed since the county had that. So, it's historically, the reimbursement rate is 67%. But there's a lot of things, anyway, we're dragging on. But any further questions on dispatch? We invite you back on the 5th to listen to that. And of course, you can get with Jim prior to that and have a discussion. So very well. Okay, well,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We do have running security compliance.
Thank you.
Both. What happened?
No, right?
What?
That'll teach you.
Wow.
I don't know if it will or not. But I sure.
No.
Wow. Shoulder and.
Yeah, so this one's right before the elbow and this one's right at the wrist.
How?
I'm sorry.
Squeezing the back brake if I was going to touch the front lock.
Wow.
Yeah.
Need to learn to bounce better.
Good.
Bounce better when you're younger.
Yeah,
I don't just fall and stick.
yeah. You
It's
just,
technical now.
you just, thud.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I never have good news because I'm the coroner, but I'm not here to talk about the ambulance, which is a bonus.
Yeah, thank you.
I promise not to mention them. What a fun-filled, packed morning.
Boy,
So this is my first quarter report for the first 3 months of 2026. There have been 106 recorded deaths in Fremont County. Of those 106, we were contacted 60 times for investigation or referral. Out of those 60 contacts, we responded to 47 of those. That's 44% of the total recorded deaths in the county. There were 14 more cases in the first quarter of this year than there were in last year. The beginning of this year has seen the most cases since 2017 in the first quarter. I don't know why this year has been so awful. It just has. So far in 2026, the number of cases of non-natural are at 22, and that's compared to the first quarter that was 6 last year. Of those, accidental deaths is 14, 10 more than 2025. Suicides is at 5 more than 2025. Homicides is at 3, 2 more than 2025. Undetermined deaths is at 0, 1 less than 2025. Motor vehicle and traffic deaths, there have been 9 vehicular deaths so far in 2026, 7 more than last year. For the same quarter, of the 9, 7 were alcohol or drug related. There are currently 2 cases pending, so my numbers may change for the first quarter once those autopsy or toxicology results come in. For drugs and alcohol, drug and alcohol related deaths in the first quarter accounted for 40% of our cases, up from the same period of 30% last year. 13 of the 22 non-natural deaths involved drugs or alcohol at 59%. This is down slightly from the same period in 2025. Methamphetamine continues to be a concern at 3% of the accidental deaths being methamphetamine related or caused. Other drug-related deaths includes 5 positive for cannabis and 1 death due to ethylene glycol toxicity, which is antifreeze.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Was it the green or the red?
You know, so you have to find an older antifreeze,
Bad joke.
like New England clam chowder.
So it's that
Somebody drank antifreeze
to get
to die
to,
with the intention of dying.
okay.
Sorry, sorry for the comment.
So, alcohol continues to be our primary substance of abuse, with 15 cases related or caused this quarter. Autopsies so far this year, 11 have been completed for Fremont County. That's compared to 5 in this quarter last year, and 16 cases performed for contractual counties compared to 12 last year. Natrona County is our biggest contractual county, which we've completed 9 for them. We have, after the 1st of April, we have done 6 more for them. So this has been a very busy year for Natrona County as well. Uintah County for 3, Lincoln County 2, Carbon County 1, and Weston County drives all the way over here for autopsies from our facility. For the fiscal year, there have been 32 completed for Fremont County and 46 completed for contractual counties. At this time in the fiscal year in 2025, there were 21 for us and 37 for contractual counties. Outside of the supervisor clerical line item, which is Dr. Frost, there are no budget concerns. For me, there's no best way to predict the type of cases that we'll respond to each year and which ones will require autopsy. So the budget estimate was based on previous year's numbers and contractual county needs. I budgeted for 80 total autopsies. As you can see, we're at that already. As that was the high number for previous years. In March alone, Dr. Frost in our office performed 15 autopsies, well above the average of 8 per month for both Fremont County and contractual cases. I have contacted Julie and advised her of the overages and for guidance in making up the difference in Dr. Frost's salary. Revenue is at 83% of the anticipated, with $83,079 received and $5,775 billed awaiting payment. 3 cases are pending completion prior to building. Add 6 more onto there. So there are 9 cases now pending. Total anticipated revenue of $100,000 is expected to be met by the end of the fiscal year. And if you flip this over, there's just one little blurb on the back. Our overtime is at 45% of budgeted, as there's been an employee out since December on FMLA. So there's been 2 of us responding to all of the cases in Fremont County. They are now back to full duty, so there's no expectation of exceeding the overtime budget. Like I said, promise not to talk about the ambulance.
Yeah.
Any questions, Mr. Chairman?
Commissioners, questions? How's your vehicles holding up? I mean,
So mine is at the 10-year mark. And we had planned for a rotation every 10. I likely will be coming to the capital revolving to put in. I know it likely won't get it this year, but if we put in for the next few years and keep our heads up. Our mileage is low, but the wear and tear on those vehicles is immense. I just had 2 new pulleys replaced. And I have a feeling that the rest of our vehicles are kind of on that same track. There are three of our response vehicles. So I think we'll put in to replace the oldest, which is the one that I drive, which is a 2016, and see if we can't get our fleet back current by 2030.
So, Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Mike, have we got any more meetings with the architect for the building planned? Like to stay on that.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
We got any more meetings planned with the architect?
I haven't heard anything from her, so I'll reach out to her this week because we're in a black hole here and I don't
Yeah.
know. So,
Right,
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I did get an email from her
okay.
asking some questions about the facility, one of which is, and I didn't quite know how to answer this, is the gases and airs, the air quality that we deal with in the morgue, is it heavier or lighter than air? And I said, I don't know. When you can smell somebody cooking down the hall, is that heavier or lighter than air? Well, obviously it's mixing with the air. And I said, and she said, trying to determine the type of air circulation in the morgue. And I explained again that it needs to be a negative air pressure. When you open the door, it needs to kind of whoosh in the air from behind you and then immediately go up and out. So that was the last contact I had from her.
But you don't have any, you don't use any gases or anything that would be toxic to, I mean, you don't use nitrous oxide or.
No, but
You know,
decomposition does produce
Right.
methane.
right.
And in recent past, we have brought somebody in from the oil field that was covered in that oil slurry.
Oh,
And they had to be hosed off, washed off, and there was a dehy. And I don't know what dehy is, but that's what I was told it is, and I don't know how dangerous that is, so we wanted to make sure that that was off as quickly as possible. So those smells, those fumes do come into the morgue. It's wherever the person passed, what's on them at the time.
Right.
And so to make sure we do have
Ventilated.
we got a portable decontamination facility that pops out and we can run water to. We got that from, I want to say it was the Central Wyoming Healthcare Coalition that had replaced theirs, or it was Banner Health's Casper Hospital that just gave it to us, so we took it. So we can decon people outside.
kind of like an hazmat.
Right, exactly. But I can't guarantee what other counties are going to be bringing me either. So I don't know if they're able to decon before they come into the facility. We need that air just moved out as quickly as possible and kept going. Right, so I don't know what that question was all about. She said it was to a mechanical engineer out of Casper that was looking into doing the HVAC system So I don't know where that has moved to. I did answer the question and sent her back that email that same day. That's been 2 weeks ago.
That would be the same type of thing as if you were a funeral home or anything else we're bringing. I mean, they should be able to figure that out.
Well, and the same as it, and Mr. Chairman and Ms. Commissioner, it'd be the same as in a surgical suite, is you don't want those things, those
Right,
contaminants
right,
circling around the room.
right.
They need to be evacuated. And I think that there was a standard that I sent to Ms. Nielsen, about how many times the air had to be circulated per minute or per hour, because there is a standard
Mhm.
to be circulated.
I would think.
So that was one of the questions that I was asked and did get back to her quickly on, and have not heard anything since there. I did hear from John with maintenance that everything that he could do to the building has been done. He's painted the outside, the heat transfer. He's painted the outsides of those for it's not really solar, it's passive solar heating, but he's painted the outsides of those, taken all of the fencing down, painted the stop blocks. It looks really nice.
It does.
Taken down some of the old dead shrubbery. It looks really nice out there, and he's done a great job. Put the gutters back up.
Mhm.
So where we're at on that, though, that's the last I've heard.
Okay.
Anything further? Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Doc. Morning.
Keep it short for you. The top page of your little handout is just our list of programs, for the 2026. You have an idea of what museums are up to in that regard, as far as programs, events, that kind of thing. The second page is, just a quarterly update on our self-generated. I won't go through it all, but in a nutshell, slowed down a little bit over the same quarter last year, still ahead of last year, in the quarter, but it did slow down a little bit. We're up so far on the fiscal year a fair amount. I don't see that dropping. As far as that goes, the next quarter will be interesting, given gas prices. So I'm a little bit less optimistic than I was a couple months ago as far as revenue goes, but on the whole, I'm expecting a good year for our self-generated revenue. And ultimately, not seeing the deficit that we had forecast in our self-generated from revenue versus our expenditures when we move stuff over. One of the museums, I think, will probably not have a deficit in their self-generated this year, based on what their revenue was. So overall, I think really good for us. Lastly, as you know, our seasonal hours from April 1st through September are 7 days a week from 9 to 5. So all three museums are open 7 days a week, so we can take advantage of,
That's good.
so we can take advantage of the increase in visitors during that time period.
Is that proving itself?
Yeah, it's difficult to, I look at numbers and we have trackers based on, what the visitation is. Sundays are typically the slowest day of the week. At the same time, the busiest days vary. Sometimes it's a Monday, sometimes it's a Wednesday. I try to find a trend, but I don't really see one. It's hard to track what the best days are. I think as much as anything,
being open and available. I think it's important in a number of ways, not just financially, and I think over a period of time, the last, I don't know how long we've been doing it, 2 years, the Sunday visitation has grown a little bit, and I would anticipate each year it grow, a little bit more as, people realize and we're open and we're here to serve the public, so. But some of that just takes a little time.
That's true.
Yes.
So do you have any programs or anything, activities you do on Sundays? Or just?
No, not typically. While we're open on Sunday, we're pretty thin
Okay.
staff wise, so we're open. Trying to do a program on a Sunday would be a stretch that we couldn't manage. So those take place during the week, Saturday, primarily for events, but programs, probably the majority of the programs take place Thursday through Saturday. We occasionally have one earlier in the week, but it just kind of depends on the availability of, say, a speaker
Right.
or something along those lines.
You have quite I suppose it depends on what the subject is, but on your tours, do you have quite an attendance?
It varies program to program. Typically, like speakers programs, it varies. I'll give you a couple of examples. Recently, they did one on Wyoming's history through the camera lens. That had 50 people in attendance, which is a really good crowd. Probably on average between the three museums, it's more like 15 to 20. But it depends on how specialized it is. The Du Bois Museum had a high altitude bread baking one in the kitchen where they in Denison. It was really well received. You should check out the little video on in our newsletter on YouTube that we have. It was pretty cool. But because of the size of the kitchen, you can accommodate 4 or 5 people.
Right.
So it depends on what the program is and what we're able to accommodate as far as the crowd in part. Treks vary depending on location and what they are, but some of our Du Bois treks, even extensive ones will have 15 to 20 people at them, so it varies, but children's programs, again, that varies as well. Certainly varies between the communities.
Oh, yeah.
There's quite a difference in participation based on the communities for reasons I can't necessarily explain.
Questions? Commission?
Good.
Just be off the wall.
Nice girl.
Go ahead.
If somebody had a historical object or whatever, did they possibly put it with the museum for a period of time? Or how do you work that program? Or do you have any kind of a program like that? Some guys like to show off their rifles or historic rifle or.
We have a loan program and we have loan protocols. They're typically 6 months or a year. We don't do long-term loans. They're too hard to keep track of. But there's some legal issues and some paperwork associated with loans. And that's up to the collections manager and the site manager to determine if it's an object that we, adds value to the exhibits and to the interpretation. They won't just, bring it all in.
Right.
We'll borrow it. They've got to have a purpose for it.
Anything further? Thank you, Scott. Thank you for
Thank
coming in.
you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Take care.
Paige, do you think you'll be long? Okay. let's do Sage and then we'll take a break.
Okay. Sounds good.
Real good at coming in early for you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We're all about that.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Dave Goff with Treatment Courts of Fremont County and Youth Services. I came today to request hiring a position of a counselor or therapist for the adult drug court. That position is a full-time position with the salary range of $58,300 to $62,500.
Questions, commissioners? That'd be, you're ready to rehire immediately, correct?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Motion to, if there's no questions,
Well, I just wanted to
go.
ask, are you gonna restructure your attitude for that position, or you got everything in line?
No, everything is in line.
Okay.
Motion to approve this, request to hire a counselor therapist, treatment, drug court, full-time, salary range 58,300 to 62,500. It is a budgeted position.
Okay, second.
Then moved and seconded to approve rehiring a counselor therapist, full-time benefited position, salary range 58,300 to 62,500. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
You have a good day.
You as well.
We give you this, Sage. That way,
Thank you.
okay. With that, we'll take a break and then adjourn at 30.
Okey-dokey.
You can go right into that 30.
executive session for potential litigation.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Uh,
It'll only be 10 or 15 minutes.
That was you all be saying.
I know.
We try.
Poor thing.
Yeah, she's wired.
But how, was it like espresso shots? There's. I don't, and I've never seen.
Well, that should be, but how this. Oh, you still live with?
Right.
Yeah. Having a difficult.
She's the voice.
Morning.
All right, good.
Good.
Good, busy, quite busy. The board is busy. She's. Yeah. So,
Good to see you though.
well, I just imagine that. Off the side of the.
Oh, I appreciate you coming in.
Thanks.
Okay, we will begin a discussion, on the ballot initiative, ambulance service, air service, and ground transport. Mr. Jones.
Oh, boy. Okay. Okay, I had proposed some questions for us to discuss with our partner. So I think you had intended for the mayors and representatives of commission of council to be here, right?
Yes.
Or at least mayors, right? Okay. So I wrote this up for Larry, and I think Larry might have had one other further suggestion, and I apologize, I don't have this in front of you. But where did it go? This is what happens. All right. The work session is designed to discuss the issues that were raised by our last public discussion in March, on March 24th county commission meeting, along with the issues raised by our county treasurer and county clerk regarding the 0.75 sales tax for keys. The ballot initiative is currently added to a primary ballot in August 2026, having passed the county commission and 50% of the municipalities. The work session is to include the mayors of each municipality and county commission to frame up the conversation and suggest we center on these key issues raised in our previous discussion. One, should we add ballot language, which would rescind the current resolution that we passed, in order to refine who manages the funds between services and how the funds will be managed in a new resolution? Two, should the initiative be in the primary or general election? Three, should the ballot initiative be a general purpose tax or an economic development tax? Both options are within statute. The general purpose increments are 0.5% and the economic development increments are 0.25%, which would create a little bit of problem because it would probably be collecting more money than we need or less money than we need. Issue 4, can we address the fiduciary administration of the tax along with the transparency concerns in an MOU or MOA between the municipalities and the county? These could be published and then we could report on them as they go. So that's, I don't know if you want to try to throw each issue out that I raised and have a conversation about it. How would you like to answer that?
Well, I guess we can get to the decision of whether we need to rescind our vote and move forward. I get a lot of comments about the election being held during the primary election versus the general election because of the amount of voters that attend the general election. There's nearly double. And I'm concerned that we, no matter what, if we would have it in the primary, I'm not certain there would be time to get all the information out there to inform the voters. I think there's a lot of kind of unknowns. So I think we'll, one at a time, sorry.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I just got to know, so, Mayor Hancock is in court
Okay,
and expects to be here at 11:15. I'm gonna raise the question, should we wait for him, because he wants to be a part of this conversation?
Yes.
Are you all willing to wait for another 15 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll do that.
Wait, 15.
Okay, let's,
Okay.
uh, retire this subject for now, and then we'll carry on another.
Mr. Chairman, and I hope you guys all had a chance to look at the agricultural lease agreement between Clint Ponca and Chet Jackson and the county regarding the property on 1249 Major Avenue. I have had a chance to look at, I make a motion to approve this agricultural lease agreement.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agricultural lease. Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
how long is lease for? Is it from year to year or is it a
It's,
wide?
it's a year to year, but they have an automatic option for renewal for up to 3 years.
Okay,
Two successive.
Two successive terms.
okay.
So,
Because, you know, sometimes that's gonna have to be plowed up and
Right.
reseeded. And usually when you rent something out like that, they get 5 to 7 years.
and that's what we did on the last 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did we recommend a situation where, the tenant now, because they're irrigating, did we look at that?
We, Nathan wrote the current tenant a letter and hasn't had a response back yet.
Okay, so what do we do about the?
We will continue on, with the lease being May 1st. If the current tenant agrees to step aside, then we can make an amendment to this contract. At our next meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I'm talking with the previous person that had it. They put a Roundup Ready seeding in there. And so if they have to reseed, they need to reseed probably with Roundup Ready. So not just put in this alfalfa seed, so it's gotta be Roundup Ready. So
all right.
just that probably needs to be maybe in there too, I don't know.
Well, we can make mention of it, because he'll notify us if he's gonna plow up in the ground and, you know, he'll let us know.
Okay, that looks good.
Okay,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, my only comment is you put something like that in there, let's say for some weird reason that Roundup Ready wasn't available in 2 years, then we've got it written into our contract, we gotta go back and modify it, so.
Yeah,
I think the terms are pretty good, I think that it spells out his responsibilities or their responsibility in ours, so. I think it covers a lot of that stuff.
okay,
right.
that's fine.
Any further discussions? All those in favor?
Alright,
Opposed? Motion passed. Joel, come on in. We're gonna wait till 11:15 when Tim Hancock gets here. And then when we start, you can all come up. Okay, very good. Thank you. Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, do we want to handle the DOE hearings, examiner things?
Yes. We had asked them to put out advertise for a VOE examiner. Have we heard, I haven't heard anything from anyone.
Oh, boy.
Do it again?
Let's try it again until May 1st. And then if not, we'll regroup and have a conversation about it then.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Can we send letters to the individual attorneys and ask them to?
We advertise it like
We
we
advertise.
normally do.
Yes.
If we, individual attorneys, they show us favors.
Right.
So, Commissioner.
Okay. Chairman, that was the fair board, in the sense of their meeting. I think I need to just state here. They have a list of items that they would like to, put on auction. I told them to come here and talk to us first and then, let us know what those items are. Also, the issue of the house located there by the fairgrounds. I think what their issues are, in a sense of, whether to look at the issue of, renting or selling. I told them they need to come here to the table and talk with us on that also. So they're planning to come talk to us on those items. They also talked about the issue of, start requests, wanting to purchase 1 acre at the annex. I told them to come here and talk to us about that. I also told them to get a hold of, Julie on if there's any LATC or ARPA funds available, because the sign in front has been damaged by the wind. So they're gonna talk to Julie on that one. And so, and then also, they are putting in for the Wyoming Outdoor Recreation Tourism Trust Fund 2026 grant application. And so they've already put in for that.
Well, you know, with the grant application, we have to, we should approve the grant application because we will have to monitor the grant conditions and in terms of the grant. So,
Yeah, we're supposed to, I guess the submission date was April 11th.
yeah, so I guess we'll just wait for them to come and see. You know, they had a list of things that they wanted to sell at an auction. And Jared does that, and he's been going through the state surplus auction site on vehicles, but I'm hesitant to sell much of that stuff because if they get a new fair manager, some of that equipment or things that they want to sell may be in, you know, that's just conversation we can have.
So, the chairman, the issue of the, building that they're talking about, is that an asset of the county or is it an asset of the fair board?
It's all the buildings are the county's assets.
Okay, I'll let them know that because they're already working with, Guy Coleman Weiss from REMAC. With that, I'll let them know that, they need to come to the table on that one. Also, one of the items that is gonna be brand new for the fair is that they're going to be having a Fremont County Fair powwow on one of the days. For one of the, events. So, they're working on that. Also, just to let everybody know from the standpoint of liaison with the tribes, what I've heard with the Northern Arapaho tribe has put in for a grant $50,000 to initiate the process of beginning a data center. So.
That it?
That's it.
Well, Tim showed up, so we can start. Few mayors,
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Emma, did you get the file I sent you? And can we print it out? I just want to put it out front, sorry. Print out copies for everybody, thank you.
The mayors want to come up? That'd be great. Walker. Donations.
Thanks for listening.
She was gonna say something?
I just have her print out the copies so that everybody can go through the item one by one.
Did you say Doug is gonna reschedule for next week?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll attack this with issue one. Should we add ballot language? Which would mean rescinding our current resolution regarding the 3/4 cent tax in order to refine who manages funds between services and how the funds will be managed in the new resolution.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm not sure I'd be asking this. And Mr. Chair, one thing I would note for you, I was listening earlier today, when you lean back in your chair, it's very, very hard to hear you from anybody online. That's probably for all folks here. Thank you for having us here. Much appreciated. I did want to note earlier, you brought up the concern about primary versus general and voter turnout. So actually in the non-presidential year, they're actually much more equitable in terms of number that turnout. So in the last non-presidential, the difference between primary and general was only a little bit more than 1,500. And I'd also note, in terms of the political climate, from what I'm hearing currently in the broad public, is that folks are much more aware that state and federal offices are essentially determined in the primary, and folks are much more motivated for that. So for me personally, I don't hold that same concern about primary versus general. I would also note that having this on the primary then allows, if it's not successful, for the respective groups to be able to then have, I call it the second bite of the apple in the general for that, rather than having a special election and all the cost and personnel time associated with that. But that's a little bit tangential from your first question. So I would not recommend rescinding the ballot language for a number of reasons. One is, so a successful ballot has to be replicated in future elections using that exact same language. So if it appears there needs to be change to change the allocation slightly, even subtly, 0.01%, then it would have to be a totally new ballot initiative for that process.
So with that being said, with the resolution that we passed, there was no specific definitions of how it was going to be divided. That's where that'll be item 5. Right?
Correct. Yeah, that was determined in the MOA. And I agree with you that that's something that needs to be well articulated and publicized for the electorate so they can make an informed decision about that. To me, that it makes for a smoother management of funds if the allocation can be done by the MOA among the legislative bodies of Fremont County rather than at the ballot for that. So that would be my 2 cents on that one, and I won't pass it on for others.
It's should we change add ballot language? That's a rough one. I've heard a lot of comments. from, I guess, all sides, that maybe one will maybe not get to vote and defeat the whole project, but if they were on their own, they may, one or more may pass instead of losing all three. I've heard, in my mind, I think ambulance helps carry the others. I've had people in Riverton tell me just the opposite, that they're supporting maybe not the ambulance because they're happy with their ambulance service in Riverton. But they want to support the airport more. So it's a tough decision. If you give the public three pillars to vote on, I do hear a lot of comment that if they had a choice, they may support one or the other, or, I don't know, that's what I've heard people talking about.
So that being said, I don't even know if this is possible, but could you put a ballot out there and say, vote up to three? And if
Yeah, I don't know the mechanics of that, if
Yeah,
a certain percentage would be dedicated, but, and then like, Missy said, in the future, those numbers may change.
right,
Airport may get more money, the ambulance may get more money that you don't need so much. And this is just a 4-year initiative anyway, it could go away in 4 years if, and have a different look if we need less money, or we may need more money. I don't know the answer, but I've had people complain that it wasn't, that they wanted to see the delineation of each entity. And I've heard comments on that, so.
Madam Mayor.
Commissioners and Chairman, I think you all know about Du Bois Upper Country. We feel like we're by ourselves. No one in Du Bois is really interested in the airport or WRTA, even though we've received services the last 2 years from the rodeo roundup. Our main concern, of course, is ambulance service, and that's because of our aging community. Of course, I would like to see the language rescinded.
Thank you. I think one of the most important things that we need to remember is that we're here because we're trying to be responsive to the voters. We all experienced what we did from the economic development tax. I don't think anybody wants to have a repeat of that. I think we've been trying to make modifications with this proposal that will reflect that. We had heard, well, that tax was there from many people. Well, if this was something that was limited to just these things rather than the perceived pork or whatever it might be in terms of it going to picking winners and losers, those sorts of arguments were often made. This resolution is meant to address that. It's meant to be restricted to these particular purposes. Now, in terms of once you get that restricted to these purposes, we could sit there and have a whole book on a ballot. I don't think Julie would love that. That gets to be frustrating to have a whole book on a ballot. And so I think having it be something where you have a tight agreement in terms of how the funds are going to be collected and distributed, because as the commissioners, as you're aware, gets collected by each of the individual communities and the county. And then from there, much like we did before, you could say this much would need to be distributed to this entity, this much would need to be distributed to this entity. So anyway, I guess issue one, my thought is, should we add ballot language to refine who manages funds between services and how they will be managed? I don't think that that makes sense to do that. I think it would get overly complicated and it would create confusion. And so I think having an MOA that clarifies that would make more sense rather than starting from. whole cloth.
So you're saying that you wouldn't recommend changing it, but just to refine how the, like I said before, how the division of the funding is where it's going to.
Right, yes, and I think that doesn't make sense. And the reason I say that is when we are looking at each of these different services, we're going to have different years that are going to present different challenges. And much the same as we have the half cent, or I'm sorry, the 1 cent right now, we have ballot language that's pretty clear on that. And then the idea is we're going to use it in accordance with that ballot language. That would be the same idea here. No matter what else happens, this is going to only be used for 3 things: ambulance, air service, and ground transportation. That's it. No other purposes are possible. It protects the voter. It protects us from having to overcomplicate it. It only goes to those things. So an MOA can clarify the mechanism, but no matter what else happens, it can only go to those.
Right. I understand that, but what I'm talking about is one of the original conversations I had during all this background gathering information was that they were looking at like 54, and don't quote me on the percentages, but like 54% of this 0.75% tax would go towards ambulance, and another 28% or 30% would go towards airport, and then the balance would go to WRTA.
Yeah.
That's what I hear a lot of is, okay, we vote for this, but then who decides where the money goes? You know, is it, you know, we want, what people tell me is that we want a definition of, okay, 50 cents out of 75 goes towards the ambulance, and another 25 cents, those numbers don't add up, by the way, but another, yeah.
But having it delineated out.
Yeah.
And I see a positive to that. The issue becomes the exact sort of things that we dealt with when we had the half cent. We had increased need, for example, for the airport for a period of time, had increased need for WRTA for a period of time. And so being able to be flexible with that, rather than having to sit there and say, we need to stick with this percentage and there's no way that we can adjust from it, I think really doesn't get us where we need to in terms of being able to pivot, especially as far as I'm thinking about it, ambulance is concerned, where we've got, to what extent does our rolling stock need to be updated? What extent are we going to have some of these purchases that are going to have to be made? And so that kind of ties into what I think FCAG is trying to do and has wrangled Commissioner Vice Chairman Jones into, which is this RACIC group, which is trying to look at what can we do to improve and make sure the ambulance services where it needs to be going forward. And so looking at that at the same time, we've got this ballot language, I think benefits everyone involved and will help us get a better feel for the financial realities and being able to make those decisions. So I think, yes, the flexibility that offers, I think, is appropriate. And the proposed MOA that JCFKS came up with, I think, addresses that. But that'd be the next step, would be looking at that and getting that to where we feel comfortable with it.
So how would it be, I'm kind of going off track a little bit, but how would it be if we could define the percentages of the funding to go towards each 3 entities, but reduce it possibly by 1% or 2%, and that funding goes in, I mean, that balance would go into a fund to purchase new ambulances or improve the airport or help WRTA with whatever they may need. How would that be? And then have that's my own thought. That's not this board's.
Right. And I think that makes sense. And that's something that I think an MOA could take care of, because no matter what, as long as it's for those purposes,
it doesn't all have to be expended in 1 year.
Right.
It could be expended in a later year. And so I think there's a benefit to that. Sorry, Mayor.
Kind of funny, I'll passing the microphone back and forth. So a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman. So when you talked about instead of percentages, dollar amounts, do you mean you think it might be helpful for the public to say, out of every dollar spent, 16 pennies will go towards this, 21 pennies go towards that? Is that what you were meaning to indicate?
Well, it would be the same as percentages. I mean, I think people would say, okay, I'm voting for this because, you know, I know that we need ambulance, I know we need airport, and, you know, people use WRT. But in that being said, they would know how that money is being spent.
Got it.
With the last economic development tax, people didn't know how their money was being spent, and they have a bad taste in their mouth, and rightfully so, because they don't feel like it was well used.
Right, thank you for that clarification. And I agree. I think the concern that folks had was on the discretionary funding and how that was being allocated. And we're very clear that there is absolutely no discretionary funding that goes to any private businesses as an economic development for this. And I hope that helps assuage that component. I think you're right in terms of it'd be a helpful kind of word problem or example for using the current language for the PAC or whatever group wants to help promote this and educate the public to explain if you spent X amount that's of taxable services, here's how the funds would be allocated. And I think those kinds of examples would be helpful for folks for that. The allocation breakdown is 54% for ambulance, 31 for commercial air service, and then 15 and I'm going to very deliberately use the phrase public transportation.
Right.
Because it's not just WRTA. So any public transportation is eligible for these funds. And I think that's important for all of us to be really clear in our language, because that means senior center buses likewise are very expensive rolling stock. And should they need to have a replacement, they should be able to apply for funds from this. And I would echo what Mayor Hancock has said about the MOA being a great place to show the flexibility. So for instance, Du Bois and Shoshone will likely continue or create your own ambulance service. But likewise, I would argue that in the MOA, you should be eligible if you needed ambulance replacement, et cetera, that they be able to apply for these funds.
Well, I agree there too. And there again, I'm speaking for myself, but I agree that if Du Bois and Shoshone get their ambulances going, and they should be able to apply
Absolutely.
to whoever's in charge. And there again, we don't know who's in charge. That's another question. Who they could apply to help with it, with funding, with their funding needs as well.
Correct. And you bring up a great point of that, but again, I think it's something that can and should be clarified in the MOA of if there are funds allocated towards any one of these three services that have gone above and beyond, then what is the process by which these additional funds would be allocated? Are they held onto? Is there a specific process biannually where at the same time, every potential group could come and state, here's our demonstrated need, here's the budget for it, and whether that's FCAG that votes on it or what have you. I think, again, that's an important piece that needs to be clarified. And I would again articulate that the best place for that would be in the MOA to clarify how any excess funds would be managed if excess funds were to exist.
Pat, you had a comment?
So mine are just a couple of things. So are these funds going to be allocated to each municipality, or is whoever manages these funds going to keep them so that they pay the bills for the ambulance service, or they pay the money out for the ambulance service, and they pay funds out to the airport for them to use, and they pay out to WRTA? Or like previously in your economic development, the money went to the municipalities And then we had to send our portion of that money back. So that's one question. The other is, Riverton and Lander are pretty well set, and we've talked about this. I've asked you, Du Bois is not just 911 people. That's all we have in the town. But when you're talking about 82512 and the totality of 82513, we're talking about 3,000 homes. So will I be reimbursed, or will I receive the money for 3,000 homes as compared to 911 people or 911 homes? So there's questions for me as far as that goes also. And like I said, we don't know who's managing it and how it's going to be managed. And is it staying with you and you do the allocations, or does it come back to us per the previous allocations and we determine? So.
Well, and that's, you're right, you have questions, we all have questions.
Yes.
And that's why we wanted to have a meeting, because, there's an awful lot of discussion that needs to take place prior to the end of April, when it has to go before, it has to be on the ballot. Margie, do you know, I know it's,
We have to know by April 30th, if it's on the primary, we have to know by July 16th.
I would, sorry.
In talking with the Department of Revenue yesterday, Brett, Fanning, I asked that question. Can the municipalities or stores send their revenue into the state of Cheyenne? And Cheyenne turn around and send that back to our treasurer, the county treasurer, and the county treasurer can disperse those funds rather than going into each municipality and saying, okay, have you paid for your ambulance? Have you paid for all of these? That could be done with
so
Jim
Jim can answer that.
So my understanding is that it will be distributed just like sales tax. All of the sales tax will be, so. The county will get the county's portion, and then the individual municipalities will get their portion of it.
So that would come to you, Jim.
No, I only see the county portion.
I was in the impression that it would come to Jim and he could disperse the check now.
So clarifying just two things real quick. The proposed MOA, which nobody has signed on this, of course, this is just the proposal, would be that 55, and this is the one that I have, although 54, 31, 15 was what I recall, but 55% of each party's proceeds. So each community is going to receive their sales tax proceeds, the exact same way that it works with the 1%. So each party would receive their proceeds, with the idea being 55% of it would be distributed to the Fremont County Treasurer. So that would be everybody sending it directly to the treasurer for emergency medical services. And then 35% would be going to the city of Riverton for commercial air. 10% would be going to Fremont County Association of Governments for ground transportation. So when we're talking about some of the mechanism of that, of who decides where that goes, it would be those three. So the county commissioners, the county treasurer, they would be the ones who would be able to look at it and say, this is an ambulance request, rather than just having that go to Fremont County for the use of the ambulance. We're going to allow this much that will go to Shoshone, this much that will go to Du Bois, etc. So does that kind of answer that? Funds would be received by each community.
Yeah. Commissioner.
Okay, I guess the issue that I was gonna address or concern me was the economic development, wording.
Well,
rather than.
let's just go on issue one on the list.
Issue right there. Okay, because I have read, and I have just on this.
Commissioner McCarty, Wilson.
The ballot language. Number one,
I don't like the way the ballot language reads at this time. The consensus of what I hear and what I read in response to what we're initiating here for the public to vote, they don't seem to be liking the language either. And, they don't like the fact of, just to get down to it, not only the ballot language, but step one is, what we've put together as one unit. They are very upset of how that has been laid out. They want separate issues and separate components of how much each and every one of these, three initiatives, are laid out in dollars and cents. They want to be able to vote on what they want to be able to vote on the ballot. They are they want it laid out in how much percentage, so like if it's gonna be 0.25% for, public transportation, even if it goes past a quarter or 3/4, they wanna know how much percentage. They also want, they are very angry that it's in the primary. And also it's gonna cost us more in the primary because you have to send out special ballots just with that on there for the libertarian and the independent voters who are being disenfranchised. If you have to do that, it's gonna cost this county more to send those special ballots out. Or in the general election in every year is more people vote in the general. That's a fact. In a presidential election, you have even almost double that of what you do in the off year of voters. So they feel like there's several issues here. And I agree with them 100%. The ballot language is not spelled out so they can understand what they're voting for. They do not like the primary. That's another issue. And they do not like the fact of how it's in general not laid out and how they can fully understand what they're voting on.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's important to say that statutes, laws, ordinances, ballot language, nothing is perfect. So the challenge of getting something to a critical level of detail in a ballot language opens up other concerns. It creates, for instance, if we had spelled out in the ballot language that these percentages exist, then the moment one of them dips below that is we're pulling into our general funds, which the whole purpose of this sales tax was to keep from using our general funds, is that we need additional dollars because we're all getting restricted on the amount of funds we get for property tax and everything else. I just think it's, we just can't predict it. And so to me, this was the best opportunity to move this language forward. I guess I don't fully understand. We've used an MOU in the past. It's worked. And there's no reason why it can't. And there's no reason why it can't be transparent. I do cringe a little bit when people say, well, it wasn't transparent. Well, yeah, it was. I think where we lost it in the weeds on going to private businesses if they diverted. But I think in my audit of the process, which was pretty extensive, it was spent the way it was intended. And there was only one or two issues that we had along the way where we had to go in and uncover that. So I think it can work. And I think it's worth pointing out that 65% of the municipalities and this board has already passed this resolution. And if we disrupt it, the challenge will be, well, we've got 2 weeks to change it before it goes on the ballot. And I think that'd be a pretty steep hill to get to. And if we go on to the general, we're gonna be competing with the People's Initiative. And if there's other groups that want to bring other resolutions, and I think it's our responsibility as representatives, this is a representative government, is to try and not to confuse the people and try to get them as clear of an initiative as possible, and then explain the issues. I think that the MOU is going to be a perfect way to do that. But not to confuse by having multiples. I think we all lose. So I am definitely for funding these three services. And this may not be a perfect way to go, but I think it's the best alternative that we have.
Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Thomas.
You know, in the beginning, I had problems with this in the very beginning. And I've always stated why. You know, we raised the discussion of an MOU, raised the discussion of the clarification of the issue of how this will affect our constituents, but I represent District 1. And in that, with the Eastern Shawnee Tribe and Northern Apple Tribe, it does not, this MOU does not include them. It's MOU, and that continues, and in my continued voice on the issue of FCAG, there has not been a stable or understanding or a movement to bring in the issue of those two governments, even in this discussion. Now, you can say they were at the table one or two times, but the issue of a continued regard for those two governments has not been something that I see is stabilized. In that, does it represent them using Wind Transit Authority? Does it represent them using airline services or the issue of the Riverton Airport? Does it represent them using the ambulance service? And in that, will they vote for this? If they do vote, and when they do vote, you can see the changes that they can make. But in that, it's confusing. And if something's confusing to our constituents, because I can see it at this table right now, and they're probably all listening to us as a governing body and saying, well, they don't even get it. How can they get it? In that, there is no clear movement, or we wouldn't have this discussion right now, in the sense of trying to come to an agreement on this. And so, like I said, from the very beginning, I voted no on this, and continue to vote no on this. Why? Because we are, as individuals who have been elected, we represent our constituents. And in that, we should never, ever push something on them that we ourselves don't really understand or really have a true understanding of agreement or unity as government. And in that, we need to be really understanding who has elected us and who we do serve. And in that, we serve them. And is this something that they truly, one, understand, and two, would like to have? I can't see it for my constituents in the sense of District 1, nor can I see it for all of Fremont County. If we as a government right now continue to debate these issues of 4 issues, and there are probably more than 4 issues on this issue.
Commissioner Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we all know how important the ambulance is. That's probably not even a question here. But you look at the ambulance, and the only way that I can see that we can support the ambulance, and we can't keep taking it out of our budget or the city's budgets. We're gonna have the people are gonna have to step up and help fund the ambulance. The state's not coming to our rescue, and we need to have those funds available. Some people say, oh, well, I don't want to vote for the airport. Well, your doctor might fly in, and I know that there's several doctors that fly in and give shots for people that have eye problems, and these doctors will come and go, and we took the tour with the new hospital. And they're looking at 200 to 300 professional jobs coming in. So how are we gonna get these people to and fro and get them looking at, and staying here and helping us develop that new hospital without airline service? We really will be in a bind without that airline service, coming here. The buses, we think, well, I don't ever see anybody on the buses, but I tell you, they bring in $1 million into our economy. And there are 23 jobs that they provide services within their organization. Plus, they pick up our seniors, they pick up people that live out in the country, get them to their doctor's appointment, get them to the grocery store, and they have the proper lifts for the people that have disabilities. So these three items are very important. I wish we could go back and maybe put in the word instead of economic development, because people have a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth with economic development, and put the word general purpose in there, because it's more of maintaining what we already have. We already have an airport. We already have the buses. We already have an ambulance. We just need to figure out how we're gonna support them. We're not starting anything new. And so I am still in favor of these three items being on the ballot. But I wish we could change the wording just a little bit. The primary, if this goes into the primary, from the way I understand it, in 2 years, we'll be voting on it again. If we go into the general, we'll be voting on it in 4 years. You're saying no, Mike?
I don't think that's right.
No?
It'll go 4.
Yeah, 4.
It won't go 2.
It'll go 4 and.
Well, I understood if we go in primary now in 2 years, it have to come back up. No?
That's not right.
Okay, well, I stand correct. But I can see that this is still a very important part of our community. And we need to figure out how we're gonna fund it. And the only way I know how to fund it right now is with the sales tax. And I have too many people telling me they do not want more property tax. We have about a 23% or a 20% inflation rate across the country, and Wyoming's at about 27. So you can see from gasoline to groceries, those are high, but I don't know any other way of funding it than to go with sales tax. And people are just up beside having any more property tax. So I'm in favor of the sales tax issue of being on the ballot.
Mayor. There again, addressing issue 1. I agree with quite a bit what Commissioner Wilson said on, I'm hearing some of the same topics. We need to give our constituents a reason to vote for this in Shoshone and Du Bois and Missouri Valley. They don't trust us to spend the money. That's why, I personally like the idea of giving us flexibility as the ballot language is now to be able to address issues that come up. But they don't trust us to make those decisions wisely. I just don't, there's a bunch of them don't. If we do our best guess estimate on what each needs and do the best we can to come up with those numbers, we're stuck with them for 4 years. It doesn't give the flexibility, which would make it nice, but we can say this is this and this. So the people supporting the ambulance say, well, this money is going to go for the ambulance, this much will go for the ambulance. People are supporting air service, same thing. They're not going to say, well, the ambulance needs more money, they're going to steal it from, and vice versa. That's what I'm hearing. And if we have time to change it, I don't know if we have time to change it, but I think personally myself, I support all three. I don't know if the top people in Shoshone support all three, but try to give them a reason to vote for it. And people in Missouri Valley, give them a reason to vote for it. I mean, you know, that's my only thought by giving each a pillar to stand on its own. And I'm concerned, my main concern in Shoshone is ambulance. We need ambulance. But we're trying to do what we can on our own to also help out the county. We want to work with the county, but if this doesn't pass, we got to plan, you know, to keep continuing on to provide service for our citizens. But that is, I don't know if it's too late to do that, but I would, and I think you give people in DuBois a reason to vote for it also.
So from what I gather here is that the general consensus is, not everyone agrees, but I think the general consensus is if we could specify the percentages of the tax dollars to go for it and get the voters informed of how much of the 54% or 55% and the 31% and the 15%. I think if that could be in the ballot language where people know what they're voting on and how the division's going to be spent, then we can work on an MOU on how much DuBois would get, how much Shoshone would get to support their own ambulances out of,
Yes.
on top of it. Because, I mean, we know how much it costs us to provide ambulance in DuBois. But, you know, I think if the voters were informed, I think it would be, all good. Yes.
Chairman and Commissioners, do we know exactly what it's gonna cost for ambulance service in Fremont County? Have they given us, I mean, are they charging us $4.8 million or is that gonna change every year? I mean, I was here to listen to Sheriff Lee talking about, you know, that they haven't paid, the ambulance service hasn't paid their fair share of dispatch fees. And part of that is because of the agreement that you had with them. So the minute we raise their dispatch fees, they're gonna raise their prices again to us. So we really don't know what we're gonna be charged.
So to answer that, Mr. Jones and I are meeting with them tomorrow to have preliminary discussions about the increase. We did get one letter of intent that they wanted to increase it by 1% for next year's increase in subsidy. But then again, like the conversation we had with the sheriff, if the county agrees to take over all the dispatch fees, that subsidy will then drop by $235,000. Well, actually more than that. The way it currently is, it would drop by 235,000 plus what the additional dispatch fees would be. So, we hope it'll be reduced fairly dramatically for us. But we're gonna have them preliminary discussions tomorrow.
Okay.
Tim.
Just no way I'm gonna be comfortable here.
No.
Impossible.
It's on
That's the
purpose.
problem. It is on purpose, I understand. So if you would allow, Mr. Chair, I'd like to actually address each of these and just, rather than spending as much time on all of them, because I think it'd be helpful to just go through each of them in one fell swoop. So first off, I guess what I would say is, I know that there's been folks that are saying this is complicated or hard to understand. And in my opinion, it's really not. We are talking about if you spend money that sales tax is applied to in Fremont County, this would be an additional 0.75% that you would have to spend. That money is distributed to each community. Those communities would then have an agreement to be able to have that distributed to each of the other communities for each of these services. Now, as it stands, the MOU has percentages. You could put
No,
those.
it doesn't.
Mr. Chairman, the MOU does. Mr. Chairman, I want to make a point if I could, Tim, if I could add on to that. So let's think about a scenario where we might have two municipalities and say, I'm just going to keep my sales tax money and not participate in the MOU. I just want to point out and recognize that that's not going to be very much for those small communities. That's not going to fund your services. We are still better together by funding this as a group and then talking about what that deployment looks like, which is really what we're talking about, is the deployment of ambulances around. And I think, I just wanted to point that out, that would be an option, not to participate in that, and then you would keep your money, but you would be responsible for the service, which would be a pretty big chunk. So,
But I think that's a good point. And I think it's an important one. So the idea would be for those who would sign on to an MOA, and I agree with you, being able to sign on to an MOA and be able to have that be strength in numbers, that's, I think, the whole point of FCAG. Pat and I might not always agree, but I think Fremont County and Fremont County Association of Governments and Riverton is served by us being able to have a relationship and collaborate, period.
Correct.
So anyway, we're talking about 0.75% that's going to go to each community. And then each of those communities, at a percentage that would be agreed upon in an MOA, would get that to the other communities. Period. That's it. That's the whole story. Then you have only one little wrinkle to it, which is, okay, we think there's a strength in not having all of the percentages in here so that we're opening ourselves up to all sorts of complication in a ballot, which I think it would. If you don't have that in there, then the strength is you can adjust. Now, as it stands, the MOA says that would be done by FCAG. I think the idea is, whether that's FCAG or whoever it is, it would be something that is fairly represented across the county. So could that be the county commissioners who would look at it per the MOA and say, hey, this year ambulance could stand to have 60% or an additional amount? Could we make that modification? We discuss, we decide, and we say, yeah, sure, let's do that. So I think it's almost like we're sitting here and overcomplicating it by trying to finesse it and trying to say, let's make it perfect for the voter so that it's going to reach everybody's wildest dreams. And we're just never going to be able to do that. I do think, though, that this is coming from the complaints that were made from the last one. We are trying to say, hey, we didn't do it right. We want to do better. We're listening and we're trying to do it right. So other than that, should it be primary or general election? I feel like, much like Commissioner Jones said, if we sit there and kind of switch horses midstream here, we're going to be opening us up for issues. Right now, we have something that the county, 4 municipalities have voted on. The idea, hopefully, is that we're going to have tribal concurrence on it. And that's going to be something that we would be able to look at and we would like to have. So issue 3, should it be a general purpose sales tax or an economic development sales tax? I would say the biggest reason why this is going forward as an economic development sales tax is because when we charged the Joint Committee on Funding Key Services, we said, don't you come in here with some proposal that's going to be creating some slush fund that we're going to be able to spend for a new vacation for anybody. We want this to be precise and we want it to be as exact as we can get it. And they came back and said, well, we think 0.75, but it's kind of between 0.75 and 0.5. But nobody came back and said it's 1. So either you're going to have a situation where it's going to be an economic development sales tax, which allows us to do quarter pennies, or it's going to be a general sales tax, which does not. And so in that set of circumstances, you have either too much money or too little. And they have spent months and months at looking at this. Can we address the fiduciary administration of the tax along with the transparency concerns in an MOA between municipalities and the county? Yes, certainly. We've got a proposal for that, and I think it would address those. I think the only thing that we really don't have a skeleton figured out for that is what do we do in the event that we find we need more money for ambulance? What do we do in the event? I mean, we're building it in with that capability, with that flexibility. So how do we do it? And so right now the MOA proposal was FCAG. Great. If the county thinks that the county would be the better vehicle for that, I support that fully. I have a representative right here who I think serves us well in Riverton. I think we would be just fine with that. None of this has been FCAG trying to get more work for itself. This has been FCAG trying to say, we hear what the commissioners have been saying, that you want to make sure we have collaboration on ambulance, fine. This is us trying to do it. And I support it completely as it is. And I think if we sit there and rescind it or go back and rethink it, it's not going to work. It's just not going to happen. And I think we need to trust the voter to make the best decisions. I know that we've been sitting here and saying, well, if we do this, the voters won't vote for it. But the reality is, then that's the way it goes. And we have to think of something else, because ultimately, it's the same thing as I've always done whenever I do a jury trial. Juries annoy the heck out of me, I'll be blunt. But you know what? It's the best we got. And I trust them to make the best decision. And I trust the voters to make the best decision. If this isn't perfect, we've tried. And we've tried to learn from the past and make it better. So overall, I guess from my vantage point, I would encourage you to keep the resolution as we have it. I feel like a lot of the arguments being made to change the resolution or to rescind it are arguments about finessing it, but those finessing, you can throw the baby out with the bathwater. We could sit there and say we're going to finesse it and make it perfect, but then we get nothing, and we're just back to where we're at. Anyway.
I like that approach. We'll just go on down the lines with the mayors if we want to go through that, and then we'll answer that too, if that's agreeable. Madam Mayor.
You always know what I'm gonna say. So I'm gonna surprise you this time and say I will go with Mayor Hancock.
Thank you.
I think we can probably make this work if our MOU, can get that out. But we need a plan forward to get away from Frontier. We need to get away from having a private ambulance company running this. We need to get where the governing body, which could be the county, it could be a hybrid. I believe something similar to what Shoshone is doing, but I think get a lot of support and train the police officers, train the firefighters. Something similar that Fremont County had in the past, with a certain amount of full-time ambulance, EMTs that are professionals and paid. But I think we need to do something different. Shoshone, there's not a lot of votes there, but Shoshone would not. I'm trying to find a reason to get Shoshone to vote for this. They would not vote for why we got our own ambulance. We're not happy because of the service we're receiving, or we wouldn't have done that. But we need a vision, a change, and I think the county commissioners can provide that. And if we provide that to the voters, I think that'll help get it through.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. To recap for me, I agree that the ballot language is concise enough, and I think linking issues 1 and 4, that any discretionary adjustments can be done through a well-stated and crafted MOA that would be available to the public in advance of the primary election. And also in that it would state if any changes or adjustments need to be made to that MOA, that again, those are all done in a very transparent manner. All of our meetings are in accordance with public meeting law. They're open to the public. And folks would all be able to see what's being discussed and participate through that. Again, I believe it should be in the primary for a couple of reasons. One, as I earlier noted, if it's not successful, then we have a chance to regroup for something for the general election. And to a point that Commissioner Wilson brought up, I'm glad you brought that up. I've likewise heard that as well. Every party has a ballot in the primary because there are nonpartisan, so libertarians, et cetera, they are already on the docket. They will have ballots in the primary, including this, because there are mayoral, yes, there are mayoral elections, there are council elections that are nonpartisan. And as registered voters, they should be able to vote for their council members, commissioners.
And then we need Margie to clarify.
Okay,
No, if this goes on the ballot, we will have one single ballot for independents, libertarians, people that are not Republican and Democrat. We will have to create a ballot for them. The only time libertarians, those people appoint their party representative to go on to general, but they are not voted on in the primary.
but are libertarians not allowed to vote for their mayor and county commissioner?
Only, but that's not county commission. It depends on what area you're in, because there's only 3 county commissioners that are up this year. So
Sorry,
there's 2 areas.
so those are partisan, but what about their mayor and council, which are
If they live
nonpartisan?
within the town,
Okay,
but not if they don't live within the town.
okay, so we're talking about a fairly small part. I mean, I don't know how many independents or libertarians are outside of municipal limits that this would apply to. But I do want to note that anyone within city boundaries does have a ballot regardless of their party affiliation for that. I agree with also what Mayor Hancock said about what the committee has come up with is the most on target for getting just enough and not too much funds, and to alter this to go to 1 or more 0.5 general purpose taxes is likely to put us square in the challenge of either not enough or too much funds have been collected. So I think it's appropriate for us to note that truly what's being looked at is trying to get as close to what's needed and no more. And again, the MOA can be crafted in a way that if there's a need to transfer funds, ambulance ends up costing less, and 3 senior centers need new buses, that funds could be appropriately reallocated through that process. And again, that would take place in open public meetings with public notice and all of that being done in accordance with all of our public transparency efforts. So again, thanks for having us here. It's great that you've brought us in. We very much appreciate it.
Commissioner Fabricius.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We just need to build back the confidence level of the taxpayer. Right now, it's a little bit shaky, but in long term, we're spending $1.8 million of our budget for the ambulance. Turn around and there's another 1.8 million for the airport. Well, the state is picking up 60% of that flight into Riverton or into the Fremont County's airport now. We've got to come up with 40. Well, how do we do that? This is how we do it. We do a sales tax so that we can keep that going. We need it. Grant, that they pick up a lot of people. They're continually increasing their ridership. I think about it, I don't think our kids are gonna be mad at us for what we use. I think they'll be mad at us for what we misuse. And I think if we could build that confidence level back up with our voters, that they'll put more confidence in us in the future of building our county. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Thomas.
I'm sorry.
No, Thomas. Commissioner Thomas.
Let me see what I can do to my hearing. I'm disabled.
You left it. Go ahead.
Chairman, everybody knows what I've been trying to say in the sense of, and if I was to cast my vote now in the sense of being a voter, I would vote no, and I will continue to say that. And the reason is that is the same thing I was always stating. Is government, when is government, or has government, or the government has? When is government gonna quit bailing out business or private business? When is government going to be, when can we try to motivate or to communicate to business that they are responsible to run their business in a good way, in the sense of being able to make money, be able to serve the community, or be able to be involved in the community that they're involved in. And now, we have 3 businesses right now who are saying they need this to survive. Well, common taxpayer, farmers, ranchers. You know, and that's mostly what I have in my area of District 1. They're gonna say, well, why do I need to vote for this to bail them out? Why do I need to do this? And it says they're a business. They make more money than I ever make in ever could make. Ever. But they want more money. And they want more money, and more money. And in that, when do we quit bailing out business and we try to find out how to make it better for our constituents without having to do this? Government is for the people. We serve the people. And in that, how do we do it in a way that we're not coming up with ideas that put the burden on the people who vote us in? That's the problem I have with it. In that, my District 1, my constituents have the lowest income in this area, in the sense of what they make. So you're gonna ask an individual who barely makes anything to vote on this, to tax them, so that these 3 businesses can make more money, that they can survive. I don't see that. I'm not for this, and I won't be for this, ever. In that, these 3 businesses need to come up with a way to survive. It's not up to government, it's not up to the people. And in that, yes, we'll probably have to find a way to make these 3 businesses survive in the end, because I do not believe common, ordinary people that we have in Fremont County, that's what we are. We're not Teton County, we're not any other county. We're Fremont County, and in that, the constituents of our county live and die working class people. And these 3 businesses have us in this hole, I don't know, it's like, you gotta do this or we're not gonna be here anymore. It's like, well, you're a business, make it work. You're a business. I think you can make it work. You're a multi-million-dollar business. Some would say Wind Transit Authority is not. But the other 2 are. And how can they help this community and make it work rather than, well, having this happen? So that's what I have to say. And if it's against everything of these governments, your idea, well, I don't think in a sense of me being that entity of a government saying you, I'm saying I am a servant of the constituents, and I believe that this is not a good thing for us to do. Thank you.
Commissioner Wells.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree in a consensus with, Commissioner Thomas that, constituents need a bigger voice in this. And, the primary is probably the thing that I have, I know you guys are trying to throw this at the wall, see if it sticks and see if it goes through. I have to stand with the people of this county. They, mostly all vote in the general. I think they need to have the voice that comes to me in a very large, capacity in their opinions, and they do have them. They're concerned about, as Joel said, they don't trust, because of the ladder tax that came through. I do not blame them, not one bit. We were all upset with that. The commissioners were absolutely against all that to begin with, but that's hindsight. I believe that the only pro I see with this is, that visitors that come to our county, they spend money here, they spend taxes, they help pay, they're gonna help us pay for this. That's the only pro I can see in this. Because, and actually, they do use our stuff too. I mean, they get hurt, they got an ambulance, they've got airlines to come in here. I personally don't have a problem with paying to help our community. You know, I mean, I'm part of this community. I don't have a problem personally in paying the tax with this. I think these things are needed, and I know senior centers get extra monies and stuff, but I see the airport as a big usage. But I also see that all of these businesses that throw out there that we need this airport. Well, where are they? Where are they in the game? Where's their skin? You know, why aren't they contributing and being a contributor every year to the airport support of that airport? You know, their business relies on it. Well, they help pay for it, you know? So that's part of my sticking point, you know, of being kind of anti with this. The vote, as we discussed, with the flexibility with some of this money to move it. So who's the majority and what's the voice in the majority? That's another stickler that they've got. Who's going to decide? Well, no, we need the money for the WRTA. No, we need the money for. I mean, who's going to decide that? The majority, and they don't like that. They want a specific number, and the cost of this is probably fairly minute, but it still costs the county on a special ballots, you know, that have to go out to the rural areas for just that. A lot of people just don't understand. That's what happened last time with the primary. There was very little people that voted for that. Like 150 something people actually passed that ballot. It was 2,000 and something, I believe. They didn't even fill it in because they didn't understand. They thought it was going to go to the general. So there's confusion. And I hate confusion, and I think that's what they're upset about, because they feel like they were duped. And I don't want them to feel like that again. I really like to be as transparent and as upfront as possible. And you think that they don't have confusion about it, they do. So anyway, my state is this is also a temporary Band-Aid. It's a temporary Band-Aid every 4 years. It seems like we need to get to the point of how are we going to fix a lot of this stuff permanently. Okay, thank you.
Okay. With that being said, is there any need for a vote to rescind? Motion to rescind.
Mr. Chairman, I don't get an opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
Oh.
No.
I'm sorry.
Nope.
My hearing aid was ringing and I thought, well, go ahead. Sorry, I apologize.
Thank you for your inclusion,
Yeah, well,
Mr. Chair. I know it's because I'm Irish. Okay. Just a couple quick points. I still like asking the voters. I will clarify that if it's on the primary, there is no recovery. We don't have time to put it on the general. And so if somebody wants to come with an alternative, it will be before we vote the primary. I would characterize our relationship with these entities as public-private partnerships. They have an expertise and a skill set and available resources to fulfill what we need as essential and critical services for Fremont County. I think the FCAG committee that's focused on regionalization and wanting to improve service is an excellent conversation. And I support continuing that. I would also probably make a point that I don't believe different disenfranchisement is happening. I think everybody gets this ballot. Everybody gets to weigh in on the primary. And I also, we've had some indication with conversations that we've had, at least with the Arapaho tribe, that there is some level of support for this. So it's not universal out there. There is some level of support. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'll go back to my original question. Is there a motion to rescind our original vote? Okay. Thank you all for coming, and I just want to make sure that in the MOU, that the division of percentages will be in the MOU, so the voters will know how this money will be provided. Okay?
Yes, read.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd say that's an urgent effort.
Yes,
I agree.
To get that in front of us, maybe work sessions coming up pretty quick.
I agree.
And I think the only thing that there's any question of is who kind of gets to be the tie. Like, I agree with Commissioner Wilson, that's important. But like I said, the way it was presented was FCAG, but as I said, as long as it's an entity that has a representative for each of our community members on it, I think whether that's FCAG or the county commissioners, having somebody be able to say, hey, we've got a higher need and adjust that for a year or whatnot is an important part of it.
Exactly. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey.
Hey.
Recap, thank you.
If we want to discuss that further, we need to get on the agenda for the meeting.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yes. The cast.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you think so.
At least you're upright.
Yeah. Hang in there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, recap.
Order, please. We can't hear.
Okay, recap.
And we provided you with a budget memo,
Right.
staff on with dated, budget agenda or budget schedule. She's gonna bump it down, she would like to bump it down a week, to give everybody a chance to get their budgets, but that would push you into having a meeting on the 6th, which is not scheduled.
I will not be.
And she would do it just in the morning.
Okay. I'm good with it. You want May 26th in the morning, special meeting, budget meeting?
I'll try it, we have some graduation time in there.
It'll be just morning, but if.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll let you know where.
and you'll be gone. Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
How about
she's
you?
trying to keep from having to move extra meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm leaving the 20th.
Commissioner, we're good.
And I will with, the treasurer to get them on the schedule on May 5th, for a dispatch budget review. And then May 1st, I will re-advertise for a Board of Equalization hearing examiner up through May 1st.
Or you, yeah. Okay. Further business.
Move to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you all for coming.
It's tequila time. Hi. Hi.
Like that.
Come on. I need a picture. Hi.
We meet in the middle.
Well, the proposal was not successful.
Oh, really?
However, they did offer some other considerations for avenues that we're keep working on. And then we're also looking to work potentially here with the state in land of that facility. That's empty right now, so we're looking at that for some other.
Nice.
Yeah, so the permit